At my very first tournament, I somehow managed to get a positive win rate playing my very silly Screaming Ravens list, going 2 wins and 1 loss across 3 very fun games. After 5 months of theory crafting, playing practice games, refining my list, and finishing off the last bits of paint I needed to do in the last few days before the tournament, because of course I procrastinated on that, I was ready to return to the Tabletop Tactics launch for my second ever tournament. With an improved army and a better understanding of the game, I of course managed to lose every single game and go 0-3. And not only did I go 0-3, I finished second to last overall. So yes, not only am I still terrible at 40k, and the first one was probably just beginner's luck, I'm also bad at being bad, because I didn't even have the common decency to come dead last. At least if I'd come dead last, I couldn't have possibly got any worse, but now there's a possibility it can go downhill from here. My ego can't handle that. I guess there's always going 0-5 at my next tournament, so look out for that. So what exactly happened? How did it all go so terribly wrong? I think I can attribute this tournament results to a few different excuses. I mean, reasons. I definitely felt like the changes I made to my list had some problems. I won't talk through the entire list. If you want to see what my list is about, go watch this video. But I'll talk about some of the components during the games to show where I think I've gone wrong. I, of course, also made a ton of mistakes and didn't get the most out of the units I chose. That's kind of a given, but this time around, what really stood out was just my lack of knowledge. I haven't really had much of a chance to play against a lot of different armies. In the first tournament, I played against Imperial Guard twice and then Necrons, 2 armies I've actually played against before and have a little bit of experience with. This time, however, I had to play against 2 armies that I have absolutely 0 experience against and almost 0 knowledge about. And that lack of experience played a major part in my losses. It probably also didn't help that the day got off to a fairly rough start. As before, Steve and I travelled up to the lodge together early that morning, and when we were getting nearly there, Google decided that the best way to avoid a road closure would be to send everyone down one of the worst single lane back roads I've ever come across. And if you recall or know what kind of car Steve drives, that was not exactly the most comfortable experience. But fortunately, the journey got much worse as we hit standstill traffic, because further ahead on that horrible 1-lane country road, a lorry had got itself into a ditch, which meant that this route that Google was sending everyone down was now also entirely blocked. Fortunately, the 40k community is full of great people, so a fellow tournament goer was a good Samaritan who got out to start help directing traffic. And being the nice person that I am, I said to Steve that I'd get out to help him. I did kind of regret that decision because I didn't really think about how I had to get out of the car. Getting out of Steve's car is difficult enough with my weird lanky frame, but I made the extremely intelligent decision to carry my tabletop stronghold Magcase 2.0, more on that later, with me between my legs for the journey, which had managed to pin my foot to the side of the footwell, making my exit from the vehicle as elegant and graceful as a baby deer learning to walk on ice whilst on fire. My incredible decision-making continued as I volunteered to run up the road to stop any more cars from trying to take part in England's favourite pastime. I hadn't really been paying attention to how far we'd gone down this road, so I started running thinking I'd get to the end of the road to stop any cars before they caused any problems. And after running for about half a mile, I came to the conclusion that the road was longer than I thought. And it was basically in vain anyway, because the cars that were being turned around overtook me and warned the cars that were coming before I got to them. After walking for nearly another half a mile, I managed to get 1 or 2 cars to turn around before finally reaching the end of the road, at the same time that Steve pulled up behind me to pick me up. After clattering every limb, getting back into Steve's car, we were well on our way to the lodge. The first matchups were revealed the day before, so I spent that day preparing for my first opponent, Matthew, and his Tyranids. But because of the delay, which affected quite a few of the players, my first opponent changed. All of that research was completely wasted. Steve was due to play a 2 Dawn guard list, and fortunately he was moved to just playing a different guard list, which wasn't too bad for him. Unfortunately, the list he was playing was now a 4 Dawn guard list, and to make it even worse, it was against Archie, who, if you remember, was the player who kicked my ass with just 3 Dawns in the last tournament. So an extra Dawn was not something Steve was looking forward to. Anyway, we're right in time not to miss on the first game, and after a brief breather to work out where the hell I was, I started my first game of the day against Ben of Grudgehammer Wargaming. Ben is a super nice guy and was happy to explain his entire army, all of his units, what they did, and even how to counter the grudge mechanic. I know there's a few people who don't really play the game who still watch my channel and want to probably understand what's going on, so I'll try and kind of keep this as simple as possible. But essentially, Leagues of Votann have grudge tokens. If you kill a Leagues of Votann unit, the unit that did the killing gains a grudge token, and grudge tokens allow Leagues of Votann units to have an easier time killing you. 1 grudge token gives Leagues of Votann units +1 to hit, and another gives you +1 to hit and +1 to wound, which is quite scary. They also start the game by giving some of your units grudge tokens to begin with. So the best counter really is to make sure that if you've already got grudge tokens, those are the things doing the killing, because you can't get more than 2. If you start just going willy-nilly and killing with everything, suddenly all of your army has grudge tokens, the Leagues of Votann have a way easier time killing you, and you fall over and just die. It's a great lesson that I just immediately forgot about during the game and kind of got lucky with, to be honest. Mission mission was Terraform, with the mission rule being Raise Banners, a rule that I had no way of interacting with because I don't have any battle line, but Ben did, so that was essentially up to 5 free points I would not be able to contest. We had the Crucible of Battle deployment, and I deployed what few units I start on the board relatively safe in one corner, with Ben taking most of his stuff in the other corner. My aggressive deployments were to infiltrate my Bladeguard Veterans on this objective right in front of Ben's deployment zone to force a reaction and hopefully slow him down, with my Flamer Centurions there as a counterpunch if the Bladeguard aren't the roadblock I need them to be. Ben deployed his Jaegers on the middle objective and also had plenty of scout moves so he could swarm the board pretty quick and start to take over if I wasn't too careful. Ben got the first turn and a good starting card draw. As expected with scout moves and disembarkment and transport, he got a lot of board control early, and a combination of Pioneers and Berserks managed to take out my Bladeguard Veterans and Judiciar. Fortunately, this was kind of what I wanted, as that flank was now in direct line to my Devastator Centurions and Flamer Assault Centurions. On the other side of the board, those scout moves were certainly effective, as we managed to get more Pioneers, a Sagittaire, and some Berserks right onto the objective near my deployment zone. I didn't get quite as lucky with my first secondary mission draw, but I did get a fairly nice return fire, moving my Stormraven and dropping out the Melta Death Bomb to take out the Pioneers and the Sagittaire that threatened my deployment zone. And I managed to take out the Pioneers and Berserks that destroyed my Bladeguard using a combination of my Devastator and Assault Centurions. That's round 2 started, and it all fell apart. Turn 2, Ben dropped down his big Hearthguard unit and Thunderkin. The Thunderkin made quick work of the Melta Death Bomb with that anti-vehicle weapon, which was very scary. But the Hearthguard didn't really do a whole lot. They were quite close to my lines, and they were being a threat that I needed to react to, and I didn't react to it. And this is where that lack of knowledge comes into play. My limited understanding of Votann led me to believe that the thing I should be worried about was the Hector Land Fortress. So turn 2, I used the space that I'd carved out in round 1 to teleport my Devastator Centurions into position with lay waste to some Berserks and the Land Fortress, using Oath and Moment to secure the kill on the Land Fortress. The issue was that the Hector Land Fortress wasn't really that much of a threat. Ben had equipped the thing with 2 twin bolt cannons, the SP Heavy Conversion Beamer, and the Matter Autocannon. The only weapon that was really a threat was the SP Heavy Conversion Beamer, which really rolls off the tongue. Great weapon name. It does damage 4, which is scary, but it's only -2, and by shooting far away, that would go down to -1 using the Vanguard Spearhead Detachment rule. So against my Centurions, that's still saving on a 3. And yeah, each failed save is a death, but it's only 2 shots unless he rolls really, really hot on that sustained hits. And the bolt cannons and autocannon really aren't much of a threat, being damage 2 and also wounding on either 5s or 4s. Unless it was rolling especially hot, it was not wiping out my 6 Devastator Centurions, and I was rapidly running out of units because I didn't start with that many. So moving to take out one big vehicle, whilst nice, wasn't really helping with the issue I was having with a lot of very angry dwarves running towards my face. That big blob of Hearthguard that had just dropped down to the open, yeah, that unit was what I should have been scared of. Lethal hits from the Carl with their 10d6 blast grenades and 30 Volkite shots with devastating wounds completely annihilates any hope of getting back into the game. It doesn't matter how tough my army is, that thing is going to rip something to shreds. And things kept getting worse. The Shrike bomb I rapidly rest fed a 4-inch charge with a reroll. I wanted to double charge to lock up 2 of Ben's units and kill the one that was doing an action, but that charge failed, leaving them completely out in the open, and they died to a subsequent charge because I mistook the unit that was nearby as something else and not the Berserks that they were. Berserks being, you know, very good in melee. Hi, sorry for the quick interrupt. This is Editor Paul speaking. I only just realized why I made the mistake I did. I thought that I was going into Warriors, not Berserks. And the reason is because when I think of Berserks, I think of these ones without the armor, but Ben has these ones. Now, before we go on, I'm not blaming Ben. I'm not saying Ben was modeling for advantage or trying to confuse me on purpose. These are excellent looking models, really well converted from the Necromunda box. I didn't realize that this is what they were, so I do want to commend Ben for this excellent conversion work. And as in the video, I misnamed 2 different things as Berserk, so clearly I just don't know Votann that well at all. This really is just a lesson to me and possibly to you to really make sure you know what's going on. There's a lot of armies with a lot of very similar looking units. I looked down, saw 5 purple armored dude and went, oh yeah, they're probably warriors, but not really paying attention to the fact that one of them was on a bigger base size and they all had hammers. To reiterate, Ben was an absolute delight to play against. Clearly he is a very good hobbyist. I would love to play against him and his Votann again at some point in the future. And if you're asking in the comments why his Berserks look different, that's why. I didn't honestly realize until making this video that they were different, but yeah, they're different and they're very cool. So, anyway, back to previous Paul, who will continue to tell you why I absolutely got demolished by these Berserks. Those concussion balls are very nasty at -2 AP and 3 damage. My Vanguard Vets aren't lasting long against that. Ben's home objective was held by a single lone Einherjar champion, which my other squad of Vanguard Vets failed to take out with their Inferno pistols due to an extremely timely double 6 save, and then completely whiffed during their melee combat. Those 2 events were just unfortunate circumstance, but it didn't really change the fact that I was being rolled over because I just did not have the units to try and counter any of the objective scoring. And Ben had a lot of stuff that could just spread around, do actions, and just run away with the victory. Despite that, I still managed, I think, a respectable 61-95 loss. I managed to claw back a few points in the last couple of turns due to my Centurions being free to leg it as slowly as possible into Ben's deployment zone for some well-timed secondaries. But it was that lack of knowledge of what the true threats were and bad target selection meant that this was my first loss. Still, I learned a lot. I had a great time against Ben, who I hope to one day play against again, as he was both an excellent player and a gentleman, and also now understands the power of Centurions. And my main goal, even in defeat, is that people fear the Centurions. And one day, Ben, I hope that you do manage to roll that 4+ for the Berserk's ability. I'm sure it'll happen any day now. Maybe it'll happen at the South Coast Super Asia. You never know. Unfortunately, the bad news kept coming because Steve informed me that he actually managed to win his first game against my nemesis Archie in what looked to be a very close match. And then it was lunchtime, and being the good friend I am, I waited for Steve to use the bathroom so we could eat lunch together. After waiting for a worryingly long time and wondering if maybe he'd shot himself to death due to the excess of anxiety and smugness in his body, I went outside for lunch by myself, only to find Steve sitting there wondering where I was, meaning I'd wasted my time standing around like a fucking idiot for no reason, starving myself when I could have been enjoying my delicious chicken burger and chips. Thanks, Steve. After lunch, it was time for game 2. I moved my army over to my new table for a fight against Aeldari. What's that you're asking? How did I move my army over to the new table? Well, I carried them in my Magcase 2.0 from table.stronghold.com, of course. Yes, I'm aware you probably didn't actually care, but this seems like a perfect opportunity to drop in today's sponsor time. Listen, you've heard all of this from me before. Mini cases and terrain made of strong MDF using the mystical power of from tabletopstronghold.com. I have one. It's very good. I took it to the tournament and it was great to use. Adjustable trays, get a discount 30% off for the spring sale, free shipping to these places I'm pointing at, tabletopstronghold.com, yada yada yada. That's all well and good, but if you haven't got one by now, you probably need more convincing. You could fit 18 Centurions on a single tray. What more do you want? You have no excuse now. Go and buy one. What are you, poor? Game 2 was against Mark's Aeldari. Mark was, as to be expected, a super nice guy and had some very cool models, including some classic old metal howling banshees and the new Lycus model. Lycus? I don't know, I don't speak Aeldari. I complimented Mark on his Lycus model, and he stated that it was actually his friend who painted it, who was just over there. At least someone else now knows how I feel. Yes, everyone complimented the Techmarine again as their favorite model. Some people did it because they knew who I was this time, but Ben did it without knowing it was already an established meme, so another point to Steve. At least Chef liked my F-Zero Vanguard Veterans. Or at least he agrees that the world needs a new F-Zero game. Maybe he thought my models were shit, but at least he's a fellow F-Zero enjoyer, so... I don't know what point I was trying to make here. Nintendo, make an F-Zero game, you cowards! And no, F-Zero 99 doesn't count. Yes, it's very good, but it's not an X or GX sequel. Why am I always talking about F-Zero X in my Warhammer videos? Anyway, I think I could sum up this game by just showing you the scorecard. It starts off quite well. I didn't have a great first turn because I failed to get marked for death on his Wraith Guard, and my list really struggles with turn 1 containments and other objectives, especially as I deployed fairly centrally on this quite unique terrain layout. Starting round 2, it was going quite well though, matching on primary and scoring fully on the secondary. Anyway, here's the rest of the scorecard from turn 3 onwards. Oh my god! Okay, so 2 things happened here. 1, I overextended. I know, right? Shocker. I felt like I could get the Wraith Guard turn 1 with my Stormraven bomb, but yeah, I didn't, and then I had some issues. To be fair, the Stormraven and its payload survived quite a long time, and the Centurions and Brutalis did a fair amount of damage on this flank. My Bladeguard Veterans once again went down turn 1, but again, I got a revenge kill after charging my Ballistus to kick the Wave Serpent to death. Yes, my Ballistus. In melee. It was kind of the best option, seeing as the Wave Serpent didn't have any wounds left and contained Fire Dragons, Azumon, and some Dire Avengers. So if I didn't kill it in my turn, they would all just hop out and delete the Ballistus anyway. So I figured I'd at least get something. And also, it was kind of funny. On the other side of the board, I decided to start my Jump Intercessors on the board. They moved forward with the hope of charging the Rangers that were on this objective, but they failed the charge and instead just became a juicy target for the encroaching Banshees. And then I must have just blacked out or something, because I don't know what happened, but the next thing I knew, my deployment zone was being handed and I was dead. This, I believe, is the second thing that happened. Aeldari. I don't know what they do, and they've recently been changed, and oh my god, are they terrifying. Fire Dragons are obscene with their damage, and have been nerfed, but what really tripped me up was the speed. They have a lot of tricks with gaining extra movement, advancing and charging, turning off overwatches, Wave Serpents. All that meant that I was being swarmed and destroyed on every flank. My only saving grace was that I managed to take out Jane Czar by using the grenade stratagems for the first time. Mark was very gracious in allowing me to use it when I probably shouldn't have, but it didn't account for any points changes, and the game was effectively over by this point. And So it was just kind of a nice learning exercise for me. So thank you, Mark, for being so gracious. In my list, I had these Infiltrators holding my backline because they can protect against deep strikes, but that doesn't really matter when the thing that's going for them can just run from the other side of the board in one turn, does it? So I didn't really feel like I got the most out of the Infiltrators in my list, and I don't think they're what I need. I don't think I was gotcha'd or anything. This was definitely just pure inexperience, and I think an army like Aeldari in the hands of a good player like Mark can make quick work of someone newer like me. But this is a tournament. It's a league event. I don't expect my opponent to go easy on me. So whilst this was a stomp, and probably not the most interesting game for Mark, I still had fun and learned a lot. Mostly I learned to try and avoid Aeldari if I can. After another break to try and work out where I was and what day it was, and if anyone got the number plate of the wave serpent that just ran me over, it was on to the final game against Mark. A different Mark. More than one person can have the same name. It's wild, I know. Actually, this Mark is a long-time supporter of the channel. He once again had brought his Lamenters and was fortunate enough this time to not have to play against Tyranids 3 games in a row. He had, however, just been soundly defeated by Steve after his dice lamented all over the place. Apparently, a 2-wound Rampager just refused to die. Such is the will of Lamenters and their dice. So now it was my turn to attempt to ensure the Lamenters lamented laminatorly. I couldn't think of any other words beginning with L that made sense. Anyway, continuing the tradition of my third game being absolute cinema, this game was an all-time classic. Probably one of the best games I've ever played. A proper back and forth that came down to the wire. A game that was on the knife's edge all the way to the bottom of round 5. I'd played against Space Marines before, but not against Blood Angels, and Mark's Lamenters had the full package of Blood Angel tricks. The Sanguinor, Lamentes, Dante, Mephiston, Sanguinary Guard, and using the Grotmus Angelic Inheritors detachment. This was the bloodiest of Blood Angel. Probably took all of the blood from the bloodless Blood Angel lists that seem to have been running rampant around this time. This was the classic take and hold on the sweeping engagement deployment with the mission rule of swift action. Another battle line focused one that I do not care about. Mark got the first turn, making this a full sweep of going second, which according to the stats on my Tabletop Battles app is not ideal. Mark managed to get an impulsor up with his 6-strong Bladeguard unit and Judiciar right into my face, charging these Flaming Centurions and destroying them. Fortunately, in retaliation, I was able to wipe out that unit after disembarking the Brutalis before moving the Stormraven, so it could walk up and charge, getting the final wounds off with its charge ability and putting the Melta Centurions in a position to charge next turn to take the objective currently being held by his impulsor. My Bladeguard Veterans, which were more defensively deployed, moved into the center, and my Devastator Centurions moved into this room to take out some stuff in this side of the board. Unfortunately, Mark was able to get some Sanguinary Guard into the Devastator Centurions with a long-range charge after I used the retreat stratagem, meaning that for essentially the entire rest of the game, these Devastator Centurions were locked in combat. They never got wiped, even against the melee-focused units. For some reason, even though they were hitting on 5s because of Angelic Visage, I don't know, I don't really care. Anyway, for some reason, they were really rolling hot because when they had to fight something that they were hitting on 5s with, they always hit. But when they had to fight something that they were only hitting on 4s, they rolled terribly. I guess they just fancy a challenge. I managed to get some decent damage in with some well-placed strategic reserves and deep strikes, but I also charged in the Shrike bomb into some Sanguinary Guard, which caused the Sanguinor to appear out of nowhere with a steel chair and destroy Shrike's entire entourage, meaning that, even though I charged, I no longer had access to the lethal hits that I would have got from the Vanguard Veterans. And yet somehow, to even the surprise of Spider, who came over to have a look, Shrike lived and managed to do a decent amount of damage before finally being taken down. On Mark's home objective, the other set of Vanguard Veterans managed to delete them through the Inferno pistols and charging. The decision to split my 10 Vanguard Veteran bomb into 2 5s, I'm pretty happy with. Having that extra unit really helps, and I've not had to sacrifice Inferno pistol damage because I've not been able to get all of the models into range. Having that extra width and more options to drop things for actions or getting to the backline rather than one big blob of 10 that would just overkill something is really nice and something I'm going to be taking forward. I was starting to turn the game around. I was falling behind, but my Brutalis had free reign to walk around, do some serious damage, and even an action or 2. The Melta Centurions didn't really get much involved, but they were just too tanky and Mark couldn't remove them, so I just held this objective for the rest of the game. My extremely angry Techmarine took a chance, and I oathed Mark's approaching jump intercessors that were coming into my home field objective. With the extra attacks the Techmarine got from seeing the Ballistus falling over, I thought I could take them out. The Techmarine charged in and completely whiffed, killing absolutely none of them. Fortunately, this Techmarine is just a tanky motherfucker. Mark finally activated the Lamenter debuff, which meant that they completely failed to take out the Techmarine, leaving it on just 1 wound remaining. In the next turn, the Techmarine would turn around and wipe the entire squad, like I wanted to do originally, so at least he got around to it eventually. After this back and forth, we reached about around 5, and things were looking up for me. Mark's primary had started to wane as he was running out of units, and I was holding 3, not even including my home objective. Because I went second, I scored primary at the end of my turn. I kind of wish I didn't have to because I wanted to be able to move my units, but to be honest, they didn't really have anywhere to go, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And it makes a lot more sense that the person going second scores at the end of their turn for a load of other reasons. Mark ended his battle round 5 with 71 points. I was going to get 15 at the end of my turn, so I needed a good secondary draw to be able to win this. My cards. No prisoners, and something else I can't remember, but it was shit. So I spent a CP to get secure no man's land. Perfect. Secure no man's land was a done deal, and no prisoners grants 2 victory points for each unit you kill, up to 5 points, so a total of 3 units to kill. With the scores as they are, with my secure no man's land and primary added on, I am 3 points behind at 68 to 71. If I can kill 2 units, I'd win 72 to 71. I had 2 targets to kill, the Ballistus and the Sanguinary Guard. The other unit on the board was a Sanguinor. I was never killing that. He has fights first and a whole bunch of other stuff. I chose to oath up the Ballistus. I needed to take this out with Melta specifically because if I had to charge, I might not end on the objective, meaning I wouldn't be able to get the full 15 for my primary. Fortunately, the Lamented debuff was still active and it was gone. Now, I just needed to kill this single Sanguinary Guard. That Sanguinary Guard was in combat with my final Devastator Centurion, but I had just freed up my very angry Techmarine. Techmarine was able to charge in without a problem, but only managed to take the Sanguinary Guard to 1 wound remaining. Only one of his hits managed to do any damage because of the Sanguinary Guard being quite tanky and also giving debuffs to combat. But now it's a Devastator Centurion's turn. 3 attacks, but hitting on 5s. A single hit goes through, and it wounds. This game now hangs in the balance on a single 3-up save. If Mark rolls a 1 or a 2, I win. If he rolls a 3+, he wins. The 4. I lose 70 to 71 on literally the final roll of the game. The entire game hung in the balance of a single wound. God damn it. He's playing Lamenters. How did I lose? I'd make a joke here saying something like, damn, Mark, at least take me out to dinner first before you fuck me like that. But Mark actually did treat Steve and I to dinner after the tournament, so that was very nice of him. This game is perhaps my favorite game ever, and being able to tell people that the game was literally decided by a single wound and seeing their reactions, being able to tell this story here is why I love this game. And even though I did lose all 3 games, I did so with a big smile on my face. After I'd caught my breath from that unexpected run, of course. I want to thank the Temple Tactics guys for another great event, and to my opponents Ben, Mark, and Mark for being awesome people and great opponents. I guess I should also thank Steve for the lift and being an all-round good friend. At least his smugness level didn't go to 11. Imagine, though, if the Techmarine actually had managed to get that kill. How smug would Steve have been if he knew that the only reason I won that game was because of the model he made? God, it's not a world I want to live in. And just to make myself feel better, despite him defeating Archie, Archie did manage to end 2-1, same record as Steve, and ended up ranking 1 place above him. So Archie, you are now the nemesis of both myself and Steve. Here's hoping I can get revenge, which may come sooner than you think. That sounded really ominous. Sorry, he's going to, I think, the South Coast Super Major, so might see him there. I wasn't going to, like, kill him or something. Bloody hell. And let me know in the comments your thoughts. What do you think I could have done better, or what would you have done? And also let me know in the comments what army you play and how to defeat it. Because tomorrow I'm at my first 2-day grand tournament. I need all the fucking help I can get, because Jesus Christ, I know so little about this game. I only hope my new list actually does something, because the only tactic I have is throwing 80 Centurions at someone. And of course, thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And to support me further and allow me to continue to make a fool of myself at tournaments, become a member or Patreon, like all of these fine folks. Supporting me financially really does make a difference and means the world to me, and gets you access to the super secret supporters club, where we share a bucket of fried chicken and call Nintendo to tell them to make a new F-Zero game, you cowards. Where's my GX sequel? It's been over 20 years!